Hey brothers and sisters, Francis Santaros here bringing another word. It's just a couple of minutes after I did the last one. I kind of thought that was pretty cool. I didn't know where it was going to go. I just got a word at my house, told to get up and go to work. And while I was on the road, he said, produce, produce, produce. You don't have time to take a nap. I'm going to be tired tonight, I can tell. But hey, that'll be okay. I'll go to bed early and get a good night's sleep. I hope I'll sleep through the night, though. All right, so I'm sitting here, and while I'm sitting here, I just got impressed to do. I got a text coming in. I got impressed to do another video, and I'm gonna wing this. I took a couple of notes of what I felt the Holy Spirit pouring out on me. So I'm just going to throw it out there, and let's see what sticks to the wall here. Okay, I'm supposed to start out with the Our Father, and it goes like this: Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation. And that's where I'm going. Lead us not into temptation. All right. So, lead us not into temptation. As you walk this thing out, temptations, tests, trials are going to arise. And I was collaborating with Catherine on this study we did a couple of days ago about the attack that's coming, and one of the things that the Lord really impressed upon me was tell him to walk in extra grace and extra love because of the nature of the attack that the body's going to be under. You know, I feel sorry for the world, but we're going to go through it too. And like Ralphina said, it's a level of sophistication the likes of which she's never seen. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen anything like it. And let me give you an example. About 10 days ago, I went through this thing where I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat, y'all. I didn't want to eat anymore. And I tell you what, it really kind of scared me because, I mean, hello, look at me. I'm Italian. I eat. Eating's like my pastime. It's the one vice that I got, you know. I will drink. I'll have a beer, maybe a glass of wine, but that's it. You know, I don't cuss. I don't smoke. We'll have a cigar, but I don't inhale. But I haven't even had one of those in a couple of years, so I don't even say that anymore. I live a really clean life. So I eat. And the attack was so strong, I didn't want to eat anymore. And I had to get into some serious prayer. And, I had a prayer partner with me that was kind of standing with me on it. And to take authority over it, it was really strong. And then later, when Catherine and I were doing that thing, it popped in my head like, hey, do you remember that? That's an example of that thing that you're going to be coming up against that's stronger than normal. That's not even me. That's not even me. And that's just an example of what we're coming up against. So let's get to this thing. He says, lead us not into temptation. Our Father, he sees things ahead. And there's a verse in Corinthians that says, no temptation has overtaken you. Now, if you look at the word and you actually study it out, it really means temptation, test, or trial. Anything that we're going to be going through. No temptation, test, or trial has overtaken you except what's common to man, but God is faithful. With that temptation, with that test, with that trial, he always makes a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. Well, remember Jesus said in the sower, and one of the things that caught my attention was I was wondering, why was I in the sower so much lately? Because of the nature of the attack that's coming on us, the sower is our defense. So he was telling me, teach the sower, teach the sower, teach the sower. Get into the principles of the sower so they understand what their weapons are. Our weapons are what? The Word. No temptation, test, or trial has overtaken us except what's common to man, but God is faithful. With that temptation, with that test, with that trial, He always makes a way of escape that we may be able to bear it. What's our way of escape? Well, how did Jesus escape the temptations, tests, and trials of Satan? He sowed the Word. We have to have our foundation on the Word. If we're not grounded on the Word, this relationship you're in is going to fall. This thing that you're doing is going to fall. This business that you're undertaking is going to fall. Whatever it is that Satan is after, and he's always after. What God was impressing upon me was that He was coming to divide us. You know, I've been on a kick here lately about find somebody. Find somebody. You know, the Bible says that a 3-strand cord is not easily broken. That's you, somebody else, and Jesus in there. It's 3 strands. You can't break that cord. It can't be broken. But the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and to divide. He's coming to divide us. And what God was impressing upon me was, man, you've got to get a revelation of the sower. You know, go into the sower. Look at the sower. Look into your heart. You know, were things getting to you? Are things bothering you? You know, I know things were bothering me. I look back on the last 10 days. I mean, I did it in the video the other day. You know, I was not myself. I've not been myself. But, hey, you know, the thing about it is, if you're in your Word, God will reveal it to you. He said He always makes a way of escape. The escape is going to come through the Word. But you can only do the Word that you believe. And here's the point. See, He always makes a way of escape. What He showed me was, He said He's going to put you in front of teaching. He's going to put you in front of lessons. He's going to open the Bible to a page that's relevant for you, for this thing you're going to be going through or are going through at this moment. So something you're going to do, or something you're in right now. You know, and he pointed out this verse to me in Isaiah that was just so awesome. Listen to this. He says, behold, the former things have come to pass, and new things I declare. Before they spring forth, I'm going to tell you of them. He's going to tell you about things that you're going to go through even before you go through them. Why? To give you a way of escape. See, our Father is compassionate. Satan doesn't know the future, but our Father does. Satan's setting traps for us. Our Father knows that. If He's a loving Father, He's looking ahead. All right, what did He say here? He says, before it comes to pass, I will tell you of them. All right, before that trap can snare us, He's going to tell us. Catherine and I got that word before the weekend. Before the weekend, so I could come out and do a message with it. Why? So it couldn't trap us. So we could tell the body of Christ, so we wouldn't get trapped. So we wouldn't get sifted. You know, God winnows us, Satan sifts us. What did Jesus say to Peter? He said, Peter, Satan has asked to sift you, but I'm praying for you. You know, Satan comes to sift us, to divide us, to devour us, to kill, steal, and destroy. You know, that thing that God has brought together. And the parable of the sower is just so relevant. I kept feeling it in my heart to teach it, to teach it, to teach it. And I teach it, but it won't do you any good if you don't use it. He says in James 1:22, he says, be doers of the word, not hearers only. Because if you're a hearer of the word and not a doer, well, let me read it. He says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. See, it's deceiving yourself. You can sit under good teaching. You can sit under good teaching. But if you don't do the word that you're hearing, he says you're deceiving yourself. And then he makes a metaphor. When he says, it's like, he says, He says, "For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, you're deceiving yourselves. He is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, and when he goes away, he immediately forgets what kind of man he was. See, but he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it." See, and that word continues means you're doing it. You're doing it. So you don't go to church and listen to this great sermon and then leave church and forget it. Man, you got to understand that you were placed in that teaching, in that lesson at that time because God is looking down the road at what's coming. He's saying, hey, this temptation, this test, this trial that's coming up, I've made a way of escape. He says, behold, I will tell you of it before it comes. So we have a loving Father who isn't just hanging us out there to dry. If we're seeking His heart, He's going to give us the weapons, the tools, which are the Word. He's going to give us the lessons, the Word that we need timely. That's that lesson that Catherine and I did, that we collaborated on. I think is one of the most important lessons. Well, I think it's the most important lesson we need, except for salvation, for those people that aren't saved, but for believers, until the rapture, because this is it and it's on. This is it and it's on. It's on, and that is, don't let yourself get picked off. Those things are coming. This attack is more subtle, more cunning, more crafty, and more devious than anything we've experienced in the past, and anything that is dividing you from somebody you love, from your husband or your partner or a close friend that you've been standing with and praying with, is a deception. It's a deception. I mean, just flat out, it's a deception. And don't fall for it. Be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. I mean, we didn't get that message so that we could just forget about it the next day. We got it so we could walk it out. Remember, the word that you believe is the word that you do, the one that you live by, not that you take in. We're a doer of the word, and then we forget what we look like because we forgot it as soon as we left it. I used to sit under this teacher, Jim Scalise, and he was so good. And I would just take notes of his lessons, and then I would go back and I would teach him. And I would teach him to my KidFit kids the whole week long. I would take what he did. We would have these 2-hour church services. Oh my gosh, those plastic seats got so hard. It wasn't really like church. You know, it was like a 2.5-hour Bible study every Sunday. And it was awesome. It was so deep and so relevant and so good. And I would go back and I would teach it. And as I was teaching it, man, it would go into my heart. I'm telling you, we spent a year in the sower. And it was the greatest lesson of my life. I'm not perfect. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to make mistakes. I am. But the one thing that I pride myself on is that if I'm wrong, if I make a mistake, I have a real humble heart in that I want to make it right. I want to make it right. I'm going to make it right. And I'm not going to make that mistake again, or at least I'm not going to do it intentionally. You know, I'm going to persevere to be the best person I can. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm a freaking guy. I do dumbass shit all the time. Excuse me. It's a but. I don't think that's cussing. But I do because I'm a guy. I function out of one side of my brain. It's like, here's an example. I get a text. And I read the text. But my mind, it's somewhere else. I look at the text, it doesn't make any sense to me. Not that it doesn't make sense because I read, right? And it goes in, but I'm not getting it because my mind is somewhere else. Why? Because I'm a guy. I can only do one thing. My brain has two halves, and the neurons don't fire from one half to the other half. I told you that story. I was at the Children's Museum one time, and there was a scientist up there, this woman, and she had these two brains. And I went up to the exhibit, and I was like, what is that? She goes, it's a man's brain and a woman's brain. I said, is there really a difference between the two? And she was like, oh, absolutely. Look here. And there's a little membrane that separates the two spheres. In the man's brain, it's like 1/8 of an inch thick. In the woman's brain, it's paper thin. And she said the difference is that the neurons actually get to fire across both sides of the brain. In a woman, she can use her left side and the right side at the same time. She goes, but in a man's, they can't. The neurons don't fire. He's either going to function on one side, or that side has to shut down, and he functions on the other side. And she said the real problem is they don't understand how to shut this side down to go over here and start working on that side. And she said to me, she said, it's like a computer. You can't just turn a computer off. You can't just unplug it. That'll screw up the whole system. You have to shut it down. You have to like cancel out of all your programs and then turn the computer off. And then it's got this time period where it begins to shut down and it's filing all the things down and then it closes down. And it made me remember of times when I'd be home. And as an example, it would be like I'm working on my taxes. When I'm doing my taxes, I got to get into it mentally because there's a lot of calculations going on. I got a lot of thinking I'm doing. I'm trying to remember stuff. I'm entering cash receipts and going through all my ledgers, and it's really intense. And I've got one side of my brain firing, and my daughter's talking to me. She needs me to do something for her, and I'm hearing her, but I'm not hearing her. Because the right side of my brain is thinking about numbers and tax law. And especially when I'm thinking about law, I'm not thinking about anything else. And she actually has to stop me and grab me by the face and turn my face to her and say, I need to talk to you. I need your attention. And I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. Give me a second. Let me get out of what I'm doing. And it's like I have to shut, and it almost takes me 30 seconds to shut it down and then go, okay, honey, I'm sorry, what is it you need? You know, fortunately, my daughter understands that about me. She understands that. But if you're in a relationship with a guy and you don't get that, then it's going to create problems. And it's just the way God made us. And it's not an excuse for being dim-witted or dull. It's just the way we're made. We're not made like you. All right? And why did I go off into that? I don't know. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. So let me get back to this. Let me get back to this lesson. Well, see, and what'll happen is Satan will actually use that against you in your marriage or in your relationship. And you know, the thing about the sower is the sower is talking to us about dealing with our heart and walking in love and not getting offended. Remember, we talked about that, setting those traps. You know, Satan set that trap for me when that woman was real mean to me. And then a couple days later, another woman was real mean to me. And a couple days later, a guy questioned me, but he wasn't even really questioning me. Satan set a trap for me, and I fell for it. And I offended the guy, and I haven't seen him since. I ran him off, and the guy he was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I love your channel. I love your teaching. I didn't mean anything ugly. And I was like, oh, man, I felt terrible. I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I kept apologizing, but I haven't seen him since, and he used to comment all the time, and I haven't seen him comment, so I think I upset him. You know, I fell for the trap. And the point is, listen, be doers of the word. These lessons that we're doing, the sower, these warnings that we're doing about walking in grace and walking in mercy, God didn't give them to us to forget them. He gave them to us because they're relevant, because He sees what's coming down the road. He says, I'm going to tell you these things before they come, so you can be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. So I want to encourage you, walk in extra grace with the people around you, the ones that you love. You just got to it this last time. You don't want to. Look, you can't go wrong if you walk in love. Even if somebody messes you over, you're still going to be fine. I'll let you go. Bye.